differences between it and the Rage Tree as well. Vengeance actually has a lot of burst DPS behind it. For example, all the moves that you will be using have burst damage. But the difference is that it also has bleed damage on top of it, and I found that it has much more moves to pull from that do a lot of damage, both with their bleeds and with the bursting. And also I find that it's easier to use when you have crowd control situations, such as when INWF does a lot of their raiding, because I can use my moves and not have to worry about breaking CCs. We maul rage, you use smash, and then you break CCs, and then people get annoyed at you. Unless you try to quickly point to the Imperial agent that used Orbital Strike prematurely. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a flexible tree, and I find for me it's a good introduction into the different DPS trees, because I found that for pretty much all the classes that I've played, you usually have the burst DPS and then you have the dot-based DPS, and I found Vengeance is definitely easier because, well, for Vengeance, you do not have to look at the enemy's debuff bar in order to keep track of your bleeds, which is a bonus. You have to for lethality, and I think for madness you have to too. Okay, so let's start. So people, open up your Spec Trees and let's go through it. And also, if you want, switch to a quick bar that you don't use and clear it off, because it'll be slightly easier to do to rearrange your moves that way. Okay, so for the Immortal Tree, you only want 4 points in it, 2 in Ravager, none in the middle, and then 2 in Enraged Thunder. It's because in Vengeance, one downside to it is it's rage starving sometimes. Not as so much as when you're in the Rage Tree. And Ravager you want because Ravage is our #1 damage dealing move, so the more points you can add to it, the better. And then, okay, now for the middle tree, for the bottom one, you want single saber saber mastery maxed out, and then you want improved sundering assault maxed out. Ignore the middle because, well, first charge's immobilize effect is awesome, but you're never going to immobilize a boss. I know it's sad, but it's true. For the next level, you want to max out your accuracy, max out Dreadnought, but ignore Unyielding. That's definitely, along with Stagger, that's more PvP move. Okay, then you definitely want Xian form. And then you want to max out Draining Scream, max out Unstoppable, which adds to our survivability in PvE. Well, all of them really, but the next tree, max it out except for Overwhelm. Overwhelm. This move BioWare gave to Vengeance kind of to throw a bone at the people who wanted to use it for PvP, because it immobilizes the target during when you Ravage, but I'll save you some time, you're never gonna immobilize a boss. And to me it's kind of a step backwards on BioWare's part, because, truth be told, Vengeance is not meant to be a PvP spec. It is, even though it can do it, but the only way it could, and guarantee it's good, is if you did a lot of the war zones where you were fighting one-on-one against people, such as when you're guarding a node and they send an annoying assassin or an annoying operative to bug you. But other than that, it is not meant for PvP. So for the next level, then max everybody. And I'll explain what everybody does later, and you'll get your second Vengeance specific move, Impale. Impale is like the move you spam every time it comes off cooldown, and I'll explain how you do that in a few moments. The next tree up, max it out again. and then next tree up, only put points in Destroyer, and then Shatter. Alrighty, and then for the Rage tree, max out Malice, max out Decimate, and then 1 point in Brutality. And that's it for your tree. And then enter Xian form, so we can focus a bit more on the rotation. Alrighty, so that Spec Tree is pretty much the standard. Everybody who does Vengeance, from the guides to the people in the SWTOR forums, say use that Spec Tree. It can be flexible, I guess, but sometimes it's just best to go with the crowd. Alright, so on your quick bar screen, what I want you to have across it should be Saber Throw, and of course Force Charge. And then you want after Saber Throw, Short Charge, you want Shatter. Then in range, Impale, Ravage, Force Scream, Vicious Throw. And then the last ones, I like to have my Interrupt be number 9, then number 10, Sundering Assault, number 11, Smash, and then the last one can be Sweeping Slash or Vicious Slash. Alright. So Vengeance, as a tree, revolves around 4 moves. Well, 5 if you count Vicious Throw. They are Shatter, Impale, Ravage, Force Scream. Shatter and Impale are your main bleed moves, and the key moves you want to keep on cooldown at all times. Usually, and how you do this really varies between who you talk to. But for me personally, I believe is you pick your hardest hitting, both burst and dot move, which would be Shatter, and use it first, and then the second one in, which would be Impale, and then use Force Scream. So this way, your dots are pretty much always ticking on the dummy, because trust me, you never want them to run out, especially the ones that are given by Shatter and Impale. And then, what's also special about Shatter and Impale, that 2.6 so graciously gave us, is that with Rampage in the Vengeance tree, if you use them in either order, they will immediately finish off the cooldown of Ravage and give you 3 extra rage. Before, that was a 30% chance. And hence why Vengeance, for a really long time, was one of the iffiest DPS in the game, because it revolved around a random numbers generator that was nice on some days and really awful on other days. My parses will prove that easily. So, and then the last 2 moves, Ravage and Force Scream. Ravage, pretty much use it every time Rampage procs, but don't you try and use it right away. Because even though it is our highest it's going to be our highest damage dealer, and so by default. So you prioritize it, but don't prioritize it. Because what I try to do is, unless it's on top of Shatter and Impale's bleeds, then Ravage is a little bit hindered. And then the last one, Force Scream. Force Scream, people say don't use it until you have 2 stacks of it in your debuff bar, which, yes, is a good general rule. However, during some cases, it's okay to use it if you only have 1. For example, if the moves that stack the Force Scream, such as Shatter or Impale or Vicious Throw are still on cooldown, but your Force Scream is up, use it anyway. I mean, it's because that'll give you a dot, and there's really no point waiting around in that situation. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is where Vengeance gets a little bit into the debating area. Your opener, well, people usually use one of two openers. Either after Saber Throw and Force Charge, they either use Ravage right away, or they use Shatter and Impale right away. I have tried it with both before 2.6 and after. And personally, for me, I prefer to do the one where you have Impale and Shatter first, and then you use Ravage. I know what you're thinking, but doesn't that waste a Rampage proc? In this case, no, it does not. Rampage will proc regardless of whether you used your Ravage or not. And it'll give you the 3 rage, which is nice, because then you have to use Force Scream, which costs rage. And for some reason, Ravage is just more powerful if it's done with at least 2 bleeds ticking away underneath it. And because Force Scream, in the one sense, it's not our most powerful move, as well as it's also our not most powerful bleed, because of our 2 stacks of Force Scream, it'll crit 100% of the time. So it is our best bursty move, and it's the best way to follow up with once you're done a Ravage. That's why I say when it comes to Rampage, when you continue on your rotation, don't use Ravage right away. Because, for example, some situations. For example, my opening, after I use Impale, I use Ravage, and then I clip it at around the 0.3, the 0.3 second mark, because the damage doesn't tick after that. And because then I can use Force Scream right away, which adds more damage. Another example is, let's say you're low on Rage, but you have one of your Rage boosters, such as Enrage or Sundering Assault, off of cooldown. Use one of those and then go into Ravage, because I can almost guarantee that once Ravage is done, one of your bleed moves will be off of cooldown, and you want to be able to use them right away, almost in immediate succession. Any questions? All straightforward so far? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, speaking of enrage boosters, in my opener I like to use Enrage between Sundering Assault and Impale, because you will run out of rage at the beginning, but other people prefer to use Sunder then, but I don't. Personally, I prefer to use Sunder after I've used all my moves, my main moves, which would include Vicious Throw and an opener, and then use Sunder. So that way, when Impale gets off a cooldown, I can use it right away. Let's see. Let's see, what else? Yes. In Vengeance, we still have an RNG move to worry about. It is our Vicious Throw move, because one of the new moves that we got after 2.0 is Destroyer, and it means that, and what it does is increases the damage dealt by our bleeding by 9%, and basically, and in addition, our Ravage and Bleeding has a 30% chance to trigger Destroyer, which finishes off the cooldown of Vicious Throw, and makes it able to use free of charge. This one is kind of a tricky one to implement, and has kind of thrown people off about Vengeance, because when I first started really reading on the guidance, if they said don't use, because Vicious Throw also procs Force Scream stack, to not use Shatter, Impale, and then Vicious Throw in a row, and that is complete garbage. Honestly, it might be a good idea for you not to at the beginning, so you're more aware of the procs. But once you are, honestly, especially if Force Scream is taking a while to get off a cooldown, use Vicious Throw. and get your bleeds back up, especially Impale and Shatter, because honestly, in this one, as long as your bleeds are up, you will get high DPS. And it's not, as long as you keep hitting Force Cream at 2 stacks and always hit Ravage when Rampage procs, that you get high DPS. And so there, especially in times when Force Cream is taking time to get off a cooldown, but Shatter and Impale are waiting for you, batting their eyelashes to get you to click on them, there is no point waiting around for Source Scream, because your DPS will go down. And yeah, and yeah, so definitely. And this is why, honestly, this is why Vengeance is one of the best dot DPS classes in the game, because the moment Shatter, Impale, and Force Screen go off of cooldown, their dots tick. So honestly, you never have to pay attention to your buff bar to make sure that they're up, or the boss's debuff bar to make sure they're up. All you have to do is to remember to click them the moment they come off of cooldown, and then you're good to go. Because I think Shatter's dot ends the moment its cooldown timer ends, and Impale ends before that. And oh yes, and if you're going to if you can clip Ravage, which I recommend you do, make sure you clip it with either Impale or Force Scream. But ideally, make it Impale. So, I guess that's it. Any questions? Shall I demonstrate? Alrighty. Broommark, I wish you were out of the way. I should turn him into a carpet someday. Alright. Yeah, and then use Thunder. And then Impale is back. So Shatter, and then use Ravage. One thing I like about the changes is I'm not as dependent anymore on my fillers as I was beforehand. So that's pretty much it. You guys practice now. Alrighty. So go for it, guys. Nice. Very nice. Oh yeah, well, just doing that, I should probably mention that the best set bonuses for us are the 2 set piece on the Vindicator, which shrinks the minimum range of Saber Throw to 0, and then the 2 set piece Weapon Master, one which increases Ravage's damage. Yep. Very nice. That's okay. The Ravage set bonus is kind of a nice addition, more so than a 100% necessity, because with the Saber Throw set bonus, you have an easier way to build up Rage, which even with the new Rampage proc, Rage building is still a problem for Vengeance, but because the only other alternative you have when it's filler time is to spam Assault. And I wish I could tell you Assault is really, 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 really powerful in the Vengeance tree. It's not. So yes. Fillers. Okay, Saber Throw, that's a filler. Sunring Assault, and Smash is a filler. Assault's a filler. Assault is kind of, don't use it unless everybody's on cooldown, which thanks to the Rampage proc, rarely ever happens anymore. Which is the last one, Vicious Slash. Vicious Slash is better than Assault, and it's a nice move to have if, and only if, your Rage is 8+. Like, honestly, don't use it if you don't have least of... I'd say actually don't use it unless you have a full bar of Rage and Vengeance, because our, like, Shatter and Impale are Rage costly, and it's a real shame if they came off a cooldown, but you can't use them because your Rage bar is empty. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Don't use an attack Adreno until after your force charge to get the most out of it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really use force push or force choke. The best time for me I usually use an Adreno when I'm up in the air in force charge. Because then it's on when you could use Shatter. Same goes with the Clicky Relic. Although, right now for Clicky Relics, the best in slot when you get into the high-end stuff is the Focus Retribution one, and then the Serendipitous Assault one. Although some people say you save a Clicky Relic for endgame bosses, I'm like, meh. Yeah, honestly, a Clicky Relic, I should not have to worry about trying to click on that when I'm in a burn phase on a boss. I should be burning down the boss. But that's definitely a good time to save your attack Adreno. So that's pretty much Vengeance. It takes a bit of practice. Although a lot of your numbers are going to be dependent on gear. But if you want to know for sure whether you're doing the rotation right or not, is that Forced Ravage should be your highest damage dealing move, followed, and then Force Scream and Impale should be closely behind it, if not tied with one another.